Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of MMA Talk here at the Lion's Den. So today we have a UFC 266 breakdown. I'm not joined by Joe today because unfortunately he couldn't be here, but he will be back on the next episode. So UFC 266 upcoming next weekend. Well, it might be this weekend when you're watching it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the main card and speak about most of the fights on there because we have got a great card for UFC 266. So let's start with the first fight of the main card. You've got Jessica Andrade versus Sylvia Calvillo. I think that's how you say her name, Cynthia Calvillo. I mean, Jessica Andrade has looked good in this weight class. Obviously, when she fought Valentina Shevchenko, you could see that class in the difference of how they fight. So Valentina Shevchenko quite easily won that fight. I can see Cynthia Calvillo not being much of a threat to Jessica Andrade. I think Jessica has got too much power. She's got the combinations. She's got the wrestling. So I think no matter where the fight goes in terms of this fight, I think it's quite easy to predict this one. My prediction would be that Jessica Andrade wins by decision. I don't really see her finishing Cynthia. I know she can finish her, but I think it's more than likely going to be a decision victory for Jessica Andrade. So moving on to the next fight of the night, you've got this is probably the one that I'm most looking forward to, other than, well, we'll get on to the rest of them. So you've got Curtis Blades versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So I'm a big fan of Jorginho, or Jairzinho, should I say. So with his fighting style, I think it's very put the opponent on the back foot. The only fight I don't think he did it in quite successfully was in Ghana, but I think that was a jump too big too soon for him. I think Curtis Blades is one of those fighters where he's, and as I said in the previous episode, one of the nearly men. Curtis Blades has done so well in the heavyweight division. He's got so close to having that title shot. And then he falls at the last hurdle. And unfortunately, I think he falls at this hurdle again. Maybe that's a little bit of bias because I am a Jairzinho fan. I think Jairzinho and Curtis Blades will probably be... I think it does have potential to be fight of the night. And thinking of the other fights on that card, I think that is a bold statement from myself. But if it turns out to be correct, then you know who predicted this. I do think it will be a close fight in terms of the output. I think obviously Curtis Blades has got the better experience in terms of wrestling. He's got the better attributes for the ground, but it's whether Jairzinho can land before that happens. I think obviously if it goes to the floor, it could be just a dominant performance from Curtis Blades, but I think as long as Jairzinho can keep it standing, I think he'll be in good stead to finish the fight. I think he's got very good hands. Obviously, we know that he's got powerful hands as well. I think if he can keep the distance and fight on the outside and only commit to heavy punches when he sees an opening, not go rushing in for punches and stuff like that, I think that he can really pick where this fight goes. I think he can, as long as he stays on the outside and picks his shots, doesn't rush in. If he hurts Curtis Blades, the worst thing for him to do would be to rush in unless he sees a clear opening, because if he rushes in and gets taken down, I think Curtis Blades will just take him down, keep him there, take him down, keep him there. And I don't see Jairzinho getting up if he does get taken down like one after another. But as long as Jairzinho keeps it on the outside, I think he can win this fight. I'm going to go with a round 2 KO. I'm not going to go TKO. I think he's going to knock him out clean, and I think the referee's going to jump in before he gets on top of him and starts giving him some ground and pound. So that's my prediction for that fight. Now, the return of Nick Diaz. Well. This is a fight that's been a rematch long in the making. I think how this fight will turn out could turn out in many different ways. I mean, you could have vintage Robbie Lawler. You could have vintage Nick Diaz. It's a very interesting fight. I think it's a pick'em fight. I think, do you get Robbie Lawler coming in hungry for revenge? Do you get Nick Diaz coming in to prove a point, saying, "Hey, I've still got it." Like y'all must have forgot. So I do think this is a pick and fight. I do think Robbie Lawler. We know Robbie Lawler, what he can do, what he brings to the table. We know he's got the power. He can knock people out. We know what he brings to the table. Whereas Nick Diaz, obviously, we know what he brings to the table, but it's a sense of the unknown because we haven't seen him for such a long time. So I think this is a pick 'em fight. I don't think I would be able to pick a winner, but I'm not going to sit on the fence. So I guess I have to pick a winner. So I I have to go with Nick Diaz, don't I? I don't think I could pick Robbie Lawler. I think Robbie Lawler obviously has a good shot because it's Robbie Lawler. But I've got to go with Nick Diaz. I think Nick Diaz, with the mind games that he'll play once they're in the cage, I think he'll go to his former self in terms of the Anderson Silva fight, in terms of the first Robbie Lawler fight. I think he's just going to talk to him a lot, try and get in his head. And I think if he comes in sharp, I think he's probably stayed fit throughout the years. You know what the Diaz brothers are like. They do a lot of cardio and stuff like that. They do the triathlons and stuff. So I do think he'll come in shape, and I do think that he will get the victory, but I think it will be by decision. I'm going to go with excuse me. I'm going to go with a decision prediction for Nick Diaz. And then we go on to the co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. I don't think this is a hard one to pick. I think this is quite easy to decide who's going to win this one. I can't see anything but Valentina Shevchenko winning this fight. I think it's a very similar situation to Amanda Nunes. I think the only person that competes with Valentina Shevchenko is Amanda Nunes. And I think the only person that competes with Amanda Nunes is Shevchenko. So I think it's quite an easy pick here. I think Valentina Shevchenko will win I think she'll finish Lauren Murphy. I don't think it will be a first round finish. I'd go with a second round submission, probably an armbar, maybe a triangle. I'm going to go with an armbar, so I'm going to say a second round armbar. I think within that first round, I think Valentina Shevchenko is going to lay it on Lauren Murphy very thick, and I think she's going to land a lot of shots, a lot of good shots, damaging shots that is really going to affect Lauren Murphy going out of the first round. And I think in the second round, I think Valentina Shevchenko will get her onto the floor and really dominate her, and I think Lauren Murphy will be a bit tired after taking so many shots from the first round. So I'm going to say that's a Valentina Shevchenko second round armbar finish. Then we get on to the main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega. Now, this is a fight that I'm very excited about. I think this fight hasn't got enough notice. I don't think it's been spoke about enough because there's so many cards that are happening, so many fights that have been happening, stuff like that. I think this has kind of gone under the radar in terms of the main event. I think Alexander Volkanovski is always a good person to watch. Obviously, you've got the fights with Max Holloway that he's had, you've got the fights that he's had before that. I think the fights with Max Holloway have been very close. Obviously, I think he could have gone either way in both of the fights. So it's interesting to see him face against a different opponent. And it's nice to see him nice to see him fight against a different opponent. I do think Brian Ortega brings a lot to the table. I think in his performance against the Korean Zombie, he looked very good. He looked sharper, he looked fitter, he was landing more shots, his movement, his footwork was better, his striking was better. So I do think this is going to be an interesting fight. Do I see Volkanovski dominating the fight? Absolutely not. I don't see him dominating the fight from round 1 to round 5. I think Brian Ortega brings a lot to the table. I know what happened in the Max Holloway fight, and if you do MMA math, which isn't always the best route to follow, obviously Volkanovski has beat Max twice. Ortega has lost to Max, but I do think this is going to be a different Brian Ortega to the one that we saw against Holloway. I think this will be more like the Korean Zombie Ortega that we saw when he comes in looking good with his hands, looking good with his footwork, his wrestling and stuff like that. Everything seemed to be good, his jiu-jitsu, but we know his jiu-jitsu is always on point. He's always going to have that to fall back on. So I do think that it's going to be a very good fight. I think Volkanovski is just going to be a little bit too strong for Brian Ortega. I think Volkanovski is probably going to win this fight by decision. I don't see him stopping Ortega. I think they say styles make fights. I don't think Volkanovski's style would be quite capable of beating Ortega and finishing him. So I would go with a Volkanovski finish for that fight. So I think going through the card, I'll just run through it again. So I think it would be Jessica Andrade win by decision. I think it will be a Jairzinho Rosenstreich finish. I think it will be a Nick Diaz by decision. I think it will be a Valentina Shevchenko victory in round 2 by an armbar. And I think Volkanovski will win by decision. So that was your review. That's your preview, for UFC 266. I hope you've all enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.